Hi there, welcome to another episode of Gekes Cantina. My name is Gekes, and today I'm going to be talking about an older film which I've recently rewatched. Now, as a massive movie fan, and I have been for many years, more years than I care to admit to, there have been films over the years that I like to rewatch. That's what I absolutely love about movies, is the rewatchability of certain films. Certain films I'm just watch them once and I'm one and done and they can just go. But very often I'll come across a film which I can just watch time and time again. And that's true of movie franchises. Now recently I have been rewatching probably one of my favourite horror, science fiction, horror franchises. Horror fiction, science fiction, horror franchises, whatever you want to say, however you want to say it. That being the Alien franchise. Now, arguably, it is, I would say, it's probably the original science fiction horror franchise. So yes, I've been rewatching the series franchise from beginning, middle, and end. And I watched the first and second one, which, in my opinion, are completely iconic and incredible. But I can dribble on about those all day. But this video is going to be dedicated more for the unwanted cousin, and that is Alien 3. Now, Alien 3, I think, has a bit of a reputation. It had certain problems during pre-production, production as well, and numerous issues post-production as well after the film was released. But you know, it follows the events of from James Cameron's Aliens, where Ripley and company are stranded on a planet of criminals. Some might say an insane asylum, which kind of feels like it sometimes. And of course, as is true with all of these movies, it wouldn't be much of an Aliens movie without any aliens in it. So there's a couple of aliens in it. You know, people die, and yeah, and it goes in a certain direction, which is a little bit different than what the previous two went on. Now, upon rewatching this film, I was watching it with more of a critical eye than I would normally. Normally, I'd just sit back and enjoy it and bask in the carnage and the blood and the gore and the British accents that's in this film, because there are some very good British accents and some very good British actors. But I was watching it with a bit more of a critical eye because I wanted to have a bit of ammunition for this video. And while I was watching it, you know, I was sitting there and I was wondering, well, it's actually not a bad movie. It isn't a bad movie, not by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, it was very well documented that there was a whole version of the film that was, or several versions of the film that had been cast out in pre-production, and that there wasn't a script, and there was numerous directors and writers involved, and they finally settled with David Fincher. Now, obviously, David Fincher has gone on to do numerous incredible movies, but this was his feature directorial debut, from what I can recall. If anyone knows any different, please do correct me, but I'm pretty sure this was David Fincher's directorial debut. Now, poor old David Fincher was already fighting an uphill battle anyway because of all the issues and the no script and but watching the film, it's really good, and it's atmospheric. There's threat, there's you know, there's grittiness. It's a lot more grittier than the previous two. You know, there's different kinds of characters. These guys are criminals, so it's, you know, pretty hardcore as far as some of the themes, some of the reasons why some of these guys are locked up. You know, rapists and murderers and things like that. Whereas before, particularly in the first one, there've been miners and explorers, and then there's been marines. You know, which are fairly, you know, wholesome and non-criminal. But these guys, you know, in the third one, they're all criminals, and it's an all-male dominated prison. So obviously the appearance of Ellen Ripley kind of puts a bit of a wolf amongst the sheep, so to speak. Is that correct? Is that even the phrase? I don't know. But anyway, she causes a few problems just for being a woman. and that, you know, there's a scene, you know, that could have led to a rape scene, which again is a little bit different than the other movies. You know, the horror sequences, the murder scenes, they're all it's all very well put together. And let me just clarify, for the sake of this video, I'm watching the special edition extended version director's cut of the feature, which is much more of a coherent and much more put together film than the disjointed theatrical version. But yeah, it's not a bad movie, not by any stretch of the imagination. Now, let me just try and explain to you what I think, as I'm sure a lot of people who have seen this film think as well, why this film wasn't as successful as the previous two. Well, let me just pick up where I just finished. The previous two, you got Alien, which was obviously Ridley Scott's incredible science fiction horror epic, which was completely revolutionary. No one had ever seen anything like this before, and it was a stroke of genius as far as I'm concerned. Then you've got James Cameron's Aliens, which is the follow-up, which was just a genius film. It is a perfect sequel. He's very good at doing sequels, is Mr. Cameron. Obviously Terminator 2 and Aliens being just two examples of just a pure magic, cinematic magic. So in the context of the franchise, poor old Aliens 3 has got to follow two incredibly successful, two monumental movies that have become iconic over the last several decades. Now already this film is already, they've set the bar so high that it'll be very difficult for this film to succeed. So expectations were incredibly high for this movie, I think, anyway. Probably one of the biggest things that why I think a lot of people were switched off by this film just in the first 10 minutes was they killed off most of the survivors from Aliens. Now we go through the Aliens movie, the special edition version, like nearly 3 hours. I think it's about 2 hours and 40 minutes of these guys getting picked off one by one, and there's a kid involved, there's Newt, and there's Ripley, and there's Hicks, and then there's Bishop, who gets ripped in half, and Hicks is all burnt up by alien acid, and you really go on a journey with these guys. And you think, oh, you know, the Queen gets sucked out, spoilers by the way, from about 40 years ago, but anyway, the alien Queen gets sucked out of the airlock, and everyone's safe, and they all go to sleep, and the movie ends. Then the beginning of Alien 3 comes, and they crash land, and the droid Bishop is smashed beyond repair, and Hicks is crushed to death, and Newt drowns in a cryo tube, and Ellen Ripley is traumatized. You know, so it didn't end well for those guys, and they happened all off screen as well. So I think the fans were expecting the survivors to be in the third one, and then when they weren't, for whatever reason, they had their reasons, I'm sure, when they killed them off, basically off screen, already fans were switched off by this. I know I was, admittedly, when I first watched it. When I first watched it, I was expecting Hicks to be, you know, a burnt-up Marine, you know, just trying to kick some alien butt again. But he wasn't. They killed him off, and I think immediately that switched off a lot of the fans. And I think the story is a little bit different as well. The alien is a little bit different. Just the anatomy of the alien. I know in the theatrical version it gets born of a dog, out of a dog, but in the special edition version it gets born out of cattle, like a cow, ox thing. It bursts out of it, and it walks on 4 legs. It walks on 4 legs, more like a kind of a hound, or you know, a dog of some description. So it looks physically, it still resembles the aliens that we all know and love from Alien and Aliens as well, but it is physically different. It moves differently, it looks differently, and it hunts differently. So that, you know, aesthetically, the alien is different, even though it is still an alien or a xenomorph. And you know, the context is different. They're in a prison. They're all male prisoners, and you know, you can't really get on board with these guys being heroes or even anti-heroes, because they're all murderers and rapists and terrorists, and even the prison guards are proper not very nice people, and the warden is a complete a-hole. I think I can get away with putting that on here. So you can't really get on board with these guys. Even Charles Dance's character, the Doctor, was a drug addict and stuff. So can you get on board with the feeling sorry for these guys for being picked off by a murderous xenomorph? Not really. But you're still rooting for Ellen Ripley. Of course you are. Why wouldn't you? And this movie, was going to draw the Aliens franchise to a close. So how are they going to end it? Well, they were going to kill off Ellen Ripley, everyone's favourite science fiction heroine. And was this a good thing? Did it need to be done? I don't know, because she had such an ordeal through the first 2 movies. You're kind of rooting for her to get through it one more time, but no, she doesn't. She ends up sacrificing herself at the end. It happens with heroes, it does. But I think fans, again, were disappointed because they killed her off and there was no future for the franchise without Ellen Ripley. But we all know this is not true, because they did Alien Resurrection, which I'm not even going to talk about that. I really don't like that film, but we'll maybe another day. Who knows when we'll talk about that again. So just to kind of summarise my last few points is that I think the only thing that this film is really guilty of is trying to do something a little bit different. Now the trouble is with these kind of science fiction alien movies, they by the time Alien 3 came along, they had other copycats. There's been others that have been similar to Aliens in particular, the soldiers against aliens, blah blah blah. And I think they really wanted to do something a little bit different, and I think that is the only thing this film is guilty for, is for trying to do something a little bit different to differentiate itself from the rest of the franchise, which it did. Absolutely, it was a very different movie, and unfortunately, when you take these kind of risks with these franchises, it can be hit or miss. And unfortunately, with Alien 3, a lot of people saw it as a miss. There's been numerous franchises over the decades that have tried to do something a bit different, to maybe send the movie franchise in a different direction, or even just try something a little bit new. I could name, straight off the top of my head, I could name the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Nightmare on Elm Street #2. That's a little bit weird. Freddy Krueger, it's like a possession movie rather than Freddy Krueger killing people in their dreams. Like it was in the original, what made the original great. And again, the second one, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, was met with very mixed reviews, because it was slightly different, trying to do something a little bit different, and again, people didn't like it. Another one was one of the Friday the 13th, I think it was #7. Again, this is kind of a bit of a deep cut, but the heroine has telekinetic abilities, and she uses her powers to fight Jason Voorhees. Yes, I'm laughing as I say it because it's a completely ridiculous sentence I just said, but again, that didn't get met with very positive reviews, because it was a break from the formula that had happened in the other 6 movies. Another one from Friday the 13th was #4, where there wasn't Jason Voorhees at all. He was actually ended up being a copycat. And again, it didn't go down very well because there's something a little bit different. And not to invoke the franchise, my favourite franchise, Star Wars, in particular, The Last Jedi. Now, that got absolutely pooed on by a lot of people. Rian Johnson, bless your heart. I really enjoyed, there's a lot about that movie that I really enjoyed. There's some of it that wasn't that great, but it was different. It tried to differentiate itself from The Force Awakens, and then obviously Rise of Skywalker followed, and again, that's a different thing for a different time. But I want to remind people of another movie, particularly in the Star Wars franchise, again, my go-to, that was tried to do something a little bit different, that didn't get met with very good reviews, but ultimately is my favourite Star Wars film, and that's Empire Strikes Back, because it is completely different than what came before. A lot darker, the good guys lose, and so it sent the franchise in a different direction. Again, all these risks that these franchises and these movies take to send it in a different direction, sometimes are not always met with red carpets, flowers. Sometimes they're just met with a big old steaming pile of poo, because people don't like it very much. So getting back to poor old Alien 3, I really like this film. Aesthetically, it looks completely different than the other films. Again, it's different. It looks different. It feels different. The alien's different. The story's different. But is that a bad thing? Well, apparently it is, because people don't like change. People don't like their things that they love to be messed with. But again, on the flip side, if they'd had more of the same of what Aliens did, so Marines coming in and blowing aliens away, if that had been done again, would it have been a success? I don't think it would have been. I still think it would have been pooed on. Just like The Last Jedi. If The Last Jedi had done more of what came before, a similar story, then would that have been successful? I don't think it would have been, because it would have been more of the same. So sometimes these steps have got to be made to move a franchise forward. They're not always successful, and unfortunately Alien 3 falls into this category, I think. You know, to follow what came before, and with all the different things that was made, the issues with the production. But I think if you look at the Alien 3 in a vacuum, all by itself, just that, not the context around it, you know, like I said, it's atmospheric, it's gritty, it's well acted, there's genuine threat in the film, the music is good, the creature effects are good. Yeah, some of the stop motion animation, this was slightly before the CGI, really good CGI. Some of the stop motion animation's a little bit dicey, but the death scenes are really quite inventive, and there's gore, and yeah, these are the kind of things that that make an Alien film really, really good. And that ticked all those boxes. But again, the only thing it dared to do was to be a little bit different. So anyway, you know, after rewatching Alien 3, I did really enjoy the film, and I still really enjoy the film. Again, it's got to be the director's cut for me, because I can't go back to watching the theatrical version after seeing that. But it is a very, very good film, and I really wish it had been given a fair chance, because I think in hindsight, in retrospective, and that's what this is, in retrospect, it's not a bad film, not a bad film at all. It shouldn't have been pooed on from a great height as it was. So there we are. So this is just something that's been rattling around in my head the last 12 hours or so, and I just really wanted to put something on video. I hope you've enjoyed watching this and enjoyed listening to my thoughts. Please like, share, subscribe, and thank you for watching this video and listening to me rant on about Alien 3 and what I liked and what I didn't like about it. So anyway, thank you for watching the episode, and hopefully I'll see you again very soon.